Ci alziamo. Buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Diremo tutto in inglese se non è un problema. Visto che...
La presentazione sarà in inglese per facilitare anche gli studenti internazionali che ci seguono di comprendere il contenuto della lezione.
Ok, quindi. Welcome everyone. This is the first event of Hydrogen Technologies, and I'm Elisa, he's Elia, and we are from Resilient Gap, that is a student association of Politecnico. We talk about environmental topics, and we are mostly based in Leonardo, but we often organize events in Movisa as well. And here you can find some booklets that we have written, so after the conference you can take a look and take one. And today we are talking about hydrogen technologies that are one of the, I think, most innovative technologies. So we hear a lot talking about that, but we want to understand more how these technologies function, which are all the potentialities of this technology. So today we have Professor Valenti with us, that is a professor of the Energy Engineering Department, and he teaches energy conversion on the at the master level. Okay, and we hope you enjoy this event, and thanks for coming.
Ciao everybody. I know some of you, some other I don't know. So I recognize known faces. I did accept very eagerly the invitation because, forget for a second hydrogen. Whenever students take their time to do additional job and additional activity, in my opinion, it is extremely worthy helping them. So I typically help students. So thanks for the invitation. You also gave me the opportunity to talk a little bit about hydrogen, which is a little mania of mine, to a broader audience from students. So I guess some of you are from energy engineering. I see you from, but not everybody, right? Who is not from energy engineering? Okay, some shy people not from energy engineering. So a little bit, and I guess also somebody from home. A good occasion to talk a little bit of hydrogen. I'll give you some scientific and technological framework to move in the big hydrogen world, as well as once in a while I will give you my personal opinion. So hydrogen is being taught frequently. Actually, decades ago, we started being taught this hydrogen. It was in the 70s. There was an energy crisis, already seeing renewables as a possible future source for the energy, and hydrogen as an energy vector. 70s. Not much has happened, right? Then, year 2000, again, starting the environmental thinking, the acknowledgement that something was happening to the environment, and the need to go beyond the fossil fuel-based energy transition. And hydrogen was again on the verge. Those were the years when I started my PhD. I did a PhD in hydrogen liquefaction. But not much has happened since then. Not much, I mean, a lot of research, but not much in our daily. So none of us really sees hydrogen, hydrogen car, hydrogen plane, in a hydrogen furnace. In those days, 20 years ago, hydrogen was thought being produced from coal by gasification. Big plants, carbon capture, underground CO2 storage, delivery of hydrogen. It was a little complicated work. Huge integrated plants, very cost intensive, very difficult to control. Today hydrogen is provided in a, I would say, new flavor, in a tasty flavor, and I guess this time it is going to do its way. Where had society has already started an energy transition. The energy infrastructure is changing already. The change has already started. It will take some time, and in this change, hydrogen will have a place. So this is how I would like to organize the talk. I call it a talk, not a lecture. Guys, we're not at the lecture, so everybody in the back, myself, no jacket. If you have curiosities, throw your hand up, ask. So make it easy. The more you question, the better it is. Once in a while, I use this presentation in, how do you call it, a specialization master classes. And if after an hour and a half I don't get to the end of the presentation, it means that I did a good job. So we don't really have even to go to the very end of the presentation. I would like to give you some waypoints, not of course a lot of detailed information on the hydrogen infrastructure, waypoint so that you can localize yourself, move around, and maybe take your decision to jump into that world. And who knows, maybe inspire some of you doing something in the hydrogen sector, because I anticipate you, there's a lot of room for doing new things. So this is,
if you could,
that's true.
yeah, but they are comparing.
Okay. So we might have to close the mic. Can you hear us from home? Can you hear us, guys?
Yes.
Is it better? Okay, good. So this is so-called agenda. So these points I would like to touch on while talking with you. So the energy transition, the why. Always start with the why. So why are we here? There's a reason you're here. Maybe you're just curious. Maybe you have already an idea to do something in this field. Then, fundamentals of hydrogen, I would call it hydrogen 101. So what you would do in hydrogen master. Among all applications, we will name some of them. I would like to touch on the liquid hydrogen application, which in terms of energy delivered, it will not be huge, but I'll show you some of the projects ongoing in the liquid hydrogen because they're cool, they're super cool. So please, if you're an energy engineer, if you're in management, I don't know, mechanical, if you're an engineer, also if you're not an engineer, there's a lot of room for doing innovations over there. Then I will tell you one slide, so a few words, on an initiative launched by our university. So Politecnico di Milano has a big initiative in the hydrogen with now 15 industries. And they're growing. Finally, wrap up hydrogen in short. So the why we're here, the why you're curious, the The why starts always in any presentation from about hydrogen, about electrification, about the energy change from this outlook, this one or any similar. So the why we're here is because there's the need for a change. The energy infrastructure, as it has been for the last couple of centuries, has allowed us to have such a pleasant, comfortable life. So fossil fuels, in the midst of the Industrial Revolution, allowed for cheap and abundant energy. That's where really humankind made a change in the style of life. Not everywhere, unfortunately. It's starting from one particular country, spread to other countries, but didn't spread a lot word. So today there are the changes, there are discrepancies, differences around the globe that hopefully will be cleared through this, will be not cleared, I would say filled throughout this transition. And there's a change, there's a quest for a change because the way we've been producing, utilizing energy has an effect. Unwanted, undesirable, important effect on the environment. So we need to reduce the carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. Honestly talking, not the entire scientific community believes it must be done. I'm not capable of making models or having an outlook to the climate in 2050. It's not my job, I do something different. I'm a process engineer. However, honestly talking, there are a huge number of scientists from that area that believe that the world is changing. So I believe them. If a large number of people say there's an effect, it must be corrected, I believe them. So I don't get into their, I don't have to be a climatologist to decide that something has to be done, because there are people who do it daily and they tell us. I believe them. So I believe this chart. This chart is saying that, look, if you would like to stop, actually slow down extremely, not really stop because the effect will go beyond 2050, at least by 2050, cut the emissions to the environment to zero in net terms. And this one you see overall, this wedge is going down to zero. There's, maybe you have a little hard time. There's a white line, net emissions from 5 to 0, from 2005 to 2050. That's where we gotta go. We need to go to zero net CO2 emissions. How to do it? Well, you see those sub-wedges, they all go down. First one, light maroon, power, the power sector. Look, the power sector goes down quickly and gets to zero in 2040. Power generation, making electricity. This is the very first sector that is going to be decarbonized, as we say normally. Why? Renewables are the most abundant and technologically more affordable renewable sources are wind and power. Small, medium, huge solar fields and wind farms. They're readily available as electricity, easy. It just
a matter of making more plants, bigger plants, in a cheaper way. Then we go up. Industry goes down, but hey, look, it never really gets to zero. So we can decarbonize the industrial sector. It is possible, but there's a so-called hard-to-abate part of this industrial sector that cannot get to zero. There are certain processes where still some fossil fuels need to be used. Very high temperatures in the steel and the cement are hard to abate, very hard to abate sectors. Then we go up, getting a little darker, transport. It goes down as well, but also never really gets to zero. Is it possible to decarbonize a car? Yes. Is it possible to decarbonize a truck? Yes. It's slightly more difficult, but okay, we can do it. It is possible to decarbonize a train. Okay. Ships and airplanes. It's a totally different story. Make a decarbonized ship going from one continent to the other continent. It will transport nothing because that ship needs very high energy dense fuel, like a fossil fuel. Similarly for air transport, can you make a regional decarbonized plane? Yeah, yes, definitely. Maybe 5 to 10 years we will be flying electric. In the short. In the medium range, going for instance 2,000 kilometers, can do it. Go to Japan. You need again an energy dense fuel. So if we're talking about intercontinental flights, difficult. We have synthetic aviation fuels, we have biofuels, but look, the quantity required will be huge. And then I'll be a little faster, there are the blue ones, on which a residential. Because we all live in a house. So, is it possible to decarbonize a house not using a fossil fuel? New houses, yes. Heat pumps. Existing houses, very old houses, way more difficult. If you think we're close to Milano, consider Milano, Area C, so that make Area C totally decarbonized. How? Will the electrical infrastructure hold it? The answer is no way. You will have a blackout every hour. And then there's agriculture. However, so you see that all wedges, they don't go to zero, but there has to be a net zero because one line goes to zero. There's something below the zero axis. Something that captures negative, that makes negative carbon capture, negative emissions, sorry. Two main technologies. We could think to use bioenergy, so growing plants, using them for energy purposes, and then capture the CO2 and store it somewhere. So these plants growing, they will capture CO2 from air. When we use them for energy purposes, take the CO2, hide it somewhere, and that's a way of capturing from air. You can do it with plants. Maybe you will be able to do it with plants. But in the way I mean plants. So from a process engineer point perspective, Bill believes a lot in direct air carbon capture, so making technologies that captures CO2 from air. Technologically difficult, economically very difficult, because CO2 once in the air is very diluted. But A, it's a plan B. If something goes wrong with all other technologies, there's the need to do something with the CO2 already in the air. So it is a technology being investigated. If you sum everything, it goes to zero. I work in the hydrogen sector. I believe hydrogen will be part of our life 2030, 2040, those years, not tomorrow. However, I strongly believe that the major character of the energy transition is electricity. Electrification of processes is the answer number one to the decarbonization. Electricity is produced from renewables readily. Use it. We will see that the energy used in 2050 at the final point of use as electricity will be more than 50%. More than 50% is still not 100%. And why is that? When electricity is produced from renewable sources, does not necessarily mean it's the moment in which users require it. There is not only an imbalance throughout the day, there is a strong imbalance throughout the seasons. So because we always are repeating that the electrical infrastructure need to be balanced, introduce in the grid as much electricity as it is consumed in order to keep frequency, in order to keep voltage. So I believe in the electrification, but can it be a full electrification? Oh God, Elon Musk, right or wrong? Elon Musk does not believe in hydrogen. You know, he calls it fuel cells instead of fuel cells. For one time, I take the occasion to disagree with Elon, with my friend. We don't know each other. Why? I told you, not all sectors can be electrified. And I don't believe that all the electricity can be stored only in batteries. I don't believe in word full of batteries. I don't. And then I'll show you. Also, I don't believe that it's wise to build an electric infrastructure that has to meet the entire energy demand. Why? You would have to design it on the peak of the demand. So you would have to design a huge, powerful energy infrastructure for the moment of the year you have the peak. Otherwise, that infrastructure goes down. What does it mean? It has to be several times larger, more powerful, higher capability of transferring energy, several times the size of today's infrastructure. So if you really believe you want to cover all the energy demand as electricity, build an infrastructure that is 6, 7, 8 times larger than today. Expensive. Transferring energy as a gas, as a gaseous fuel, or even better as a liquid fuel is way cheaper. Way cheaper. So I don't believe. Let's say electricity will be the character number one, hydrogen will be number two. I don't believe in batteries, not only because of technical issues, but I don't believe in batteries I don't believe in a world only with batteries. I believe in batteries, by the way, but let me complete my sentence. I don't believe in a world with energy stored only in batteries, because on top of the technical problems, because batteries are bulky with respect to the energy they require, because they need, at least with today's technologies, tomorrow, who knows, precious metals, and because there's a geopolitical issue. The minerals, the metals that need to go into the batteries are concentrated in very few countries. If you complain the geopolitics of fossil fuels, lithium is worse. Even more difficult. Mines are only in a few countries, and plants capable of processing the output of those mines are even in fewer countries. And those countries are not in Europe, for instance. So building a huge electric infrastructure creates a not so small geopolitical concern. So we have also to think about this. Not really us, lawmakers should, but still we have to know there's a potential issue. Okay. And these are same scenario as we saw before, how to get to zero net emission by 2050. A different perspective at the scenario. On the left-hand side, you see the supply over the decades in terms of source. And at the right, you see as end uses in terms of fuels and electricity. Among all these colorful areas, I drag your attention to the right-hand side, where hydrogen-based fuel are the violet. Ain't that big? You see the bar? It starts growing in 2030, it's something small. 2040, it grows. 2050, I'm talking about this part, guys. Small, growing, but still a fraction. So roughly, estimates say that the end use of energy as hydrogen, as a fuel, or down here for producing electricity, might account for 20–25% of the final energy use. So more than 50% in 2050 of the energy use is electricity. Hydrogen, they make 25. Say that we have a lacking 25%. So we have electricity, the lion. Then hydrogen, not that small. And then we need something else. There are hydrogen-based fuels, and there are still some fossil fuels. There are synthetic fuels, biofuels, and again, some fossil fuels. So this is what people making scenarios believe is going to happen. And also I add, so finite use of energy is 20–25% of what? It's 20–25% of a huge infrastructure. So yes, electricity will be more than 50, hydrogen 20–25, but 20–25 of something big is big, okay? So this is where there's a lot of room for a number of people doing their work. And this is where I am, and maybe where you're going to be. So hydrogen, quickly, because this is a really fundamental things that I'm sure you know. Hydrogen is the simplest and smallest element. It's the most common, but extremely reactive. So as we always say on Earth, it's always bounded to other elements. molecular hydrogen H2 is colorless, odorless, and non-toxic. So don't be careful if you breathe a little bit of hydrogen. You, Miguel, in our lab, don't be careful, don't be afraid. But hydrogen has a pro and a con. It's really reactive, which is good because it makes the use of hydrogen easy, which is not as good when you want to design an extremely safe energy storage system. But it is like that. When used, of course, H2 does not emit any carbon of any kind. So it is the simplest carbon-free energy vector along with electricity. Some features. The title of today's seminar or talk is the color word. Yes, because there are multiple ways to produce hydrogen, but you will see that after all, we're looking at one color for the future. Very versatile, you can use it, you can transfer it, you can store it. Using it is extremely easy. You can produce it in a number of ways. It might be a little expensive, and importantly is a chemical feedstock. Hydrogen is the starting point of producing something else. Ammonia, green ammonia, renewable ammonia, methanol, ethanol, just to name some of the other future energy carriers. But challenging. It's small, it leaks easily, it escapes from pipes, from systems, way more easily than natural gas. So sealing is an issue. Very low density, so it is not as energy dense as fossil fuels, as gasoline, for instance. Reactive, which to me is a good thing, but again, it raises some issues because it's not only very reactive, but the flammability limits, temperature, ambient condition, 4%, 75%, it means it burns with little oxygen, with little air, and also with a lot of air. So it really burns. Not visible flame. So when it burns, there's energy is not emitted in a visible wavelength. You don't see it. Just feel it that it's hot, but you don't see it. But hydrogen, despite not energy dense as fuels, hydrogen has some advantages over the batteries. Look, in this presentation, you'll see the gravimetric hydrogen density, so how much hydrogen is containing a storage system in terms of kilograms of hydrogen per kilogram of energy storage system, and volumetric, how much volume of hydrogen is stored per volume, how much kilogram of hydrogen per volume. Didn't work. I wanted to help. So look, this area is a desired area where the Department of Energy of USA is putting money to get to in the future. But let's start from over here. You see lithium-ion batteries in terms of energy equivalent to hydrogen is down here. The concept is lithium-ion batteries are extremely versatile, but they're bulky and heavy with respect to the energy they can store. If we go for compressed hydrogen tanks, 700 bars, maybe 700 bars are scary, but they are already technically feasible. It's possible to do them already. Or we'll spend the word liquid hydrogen. Liquid hydrogen is the way of storing large quantities of hydrogen. It's the best way of storing. So this is the there's an interest, one of the whys, there's an interest in storing hydrogen energy as hydrogen. Here in Italy, we discovered that Sogit, an Italian company, stores underground natural gas in summer to use it in winter. Unfortunately, Italians got to know it because of the war in Ukraine. The same can be done with hydrogen. Hydrogen makes it possible to store it underground, large quantities of hydrogen, of energy, maybe in the summertime when renewables are really strong, so that we can use it, this energy, this hydrogen, for the winter time. So we could do something similar to natural gas with hydrogen. Simply, this natural gas is not going to be drilled somewhere thousands of kilometers away as natural gas, but this hydrogen would be maybe produced offshore from large wind, onshore for large photovoltaic power plants. During the summertime, we store it and then we use it during the winter time. And storing energy over longer times as hydrogen is way cheaper than doing it with batteries. The hydrogen supply chain, there's a supply chain. It goes from production to end use, going through conditioning. So we produce it in a number of ways. We'll see the colors in the next slide. We condition it, so once the hydrogen is produced, likely it has to be compressed, 700 bars, maybe even 1,000 bars. It could be liquefied, it could be attached to something through hydrogenation and making a liquid organic hydrogen carrier. So we have to do something to this hydrogen. Transport it by pipeline, by road, railway, ships. Store it. The good point of hydrogen is storing it. Look, if the electrical demand could meet perfectly the electrical supply offer, we would not be talking about hydrogen. There would be no need for it. But this is not true. This is not true. But the point is the fact that there is a mismatching over time and space for the energy, renewable energy supply and energy use. And then the demand side, we could use the hydrogen to reproduce again electricity. I know we have to go through the products of efficiencies. You start with electricity, 70% you make hydrogen, and you lose some points in compressing it. Then you have to transport it, then you have to use it 50% a good fuel cells. If you make it, it goes to maybe 30, 35, something around there. Is it wise to do it? Once again, mismatching. You do it because the demand of energy does not match exactly the offer of energy. Then you could use it for transport, you could use it in the industry, and you could use it in the houses. Honestly talking myself, I don't believe hydrogen will come into the houses as natural gas does today. There's no really need. To me, how you call it, the cook, not electromagnetic, inductive cooks work super fine. But if we're talking about winter conditioning of houses, well, I believe personally, who knows, we will see in the years, I believe personally that hydrogen will come close to our houses, where it will be converted into thermal power, as natural gas is done today. Not only me believes it, there are big projects in the Netherlands, in the UK, Belgium, in converting entire blocks of cities like Leeds, for instance, which is the most advanced project from natural gas to hydrogen. So it will be possible, it will be feasible. How about the colors? Look, there are a number of colors. They're not a unique way of defining color. This is a common way of defining it. I would say that the most interesting colors would be green, of course, which is hydrogen produced from renewable sources, which doesn't mean that that hydrogen is really zero CO2 emissions, because in a life cycle assessment, you have also to think of the energy to produce the infrastructure. So not only the OPEX, the energy OPEX of the electricity, but everything. But it's minimal. Purple, maybe not in Italy, but other countries are really believing to produce hydrogen from nuclear sources. Nuclear power plants, they work nicely if they're affordable if they work at 100% load always. So the idea is having these huge nuclear power plants producing, and when the demand on the grid is low, that's the time when hydrogen can be produced. So the nuclear power plant goes nominal, flat, 100% power output, and then hydrogen production fills the gap with the grid. Yellow, blah, blah, blah. Blue, another good color. Blue is producing from a fossil fuel with carbon capture. There are a number of persons believing that blue hydrogen would be a good way of speeding up the deployment of a hydrogen infrastructure. I'm not sure about it, but there's a big number of people believing, okay, if we want really to speed up the birth and growth of the hydrogen infrastructure, blue for some time could be a way to make it affordable. Because today, green is 5-10 times more expensive than blue. 5-10 times more expensive than blue. It's big money today. Tomorrow it will be much lower. Conditioning, transport and storage. You will see from the colors, when you have produced the hydrogen, there are a number of pathways. So a lot can be done to this. It could be compressed and stored above ground, could be compressed and stored underground, maybe in depleted gas fields, maybe in artificial caverns, so man-made. It could be cryocompressed or it could be liquefied. This is physical conditioning, material-based conditioning, sorption, chemical compounds. So a lot can be done to this hydrogen. And then at the use, you store it, use it for power generation, for mobility. That's a Mercedes truck. It's already working with liquid hydrogen. Of course, it's a prototype, but that's not a mock or a concept. This is real. Oops, sorry. Industrial burners, so in the industry, as for thermal applications. Domestic heaters, we're working in the development of the catalytic hydrogen water heater for households. So if you come to our lab, you'll see how we could use with no CO2 and no NOx emissions hydrogen to heat up a flat and chemical feedstock. So the most common path of hydrogen is the so-called power to hydrogen. So this is green hydrogen coming for the electricity. I cannot say green with coal. I would say green with wind and solar. So this is the power to hydrogen is using the electricity to produce the hydrogen. store it, and then distribute and use it. This is the so-called power to hydrogen path, and you will read a lot of it. And there's a lot of room for research in any step. In the electrolyzers, today there are electrolyzers, very common, but they still use precious metals. Sound effect. Maybe in the future for huge hydrogen production, I would suggest to use electrolyzer without precious metals, and these are being investigated. And there are already some of them operating. And then there's a lot of the storage, and there's a lot of room for working, researching in the end uses even more. So this really simple schematic shows a big world. Also, electricity and hydrogen are actually not competing, but they could cooperate. This is the so-called sector coupling. Coupling means in putting together. Today, if you think of today, the electrical infrastructure is totally separated from the natural gas infrastructure. Maybe some electricity is produced from natural gas. But from that point on, from the point of production to the point of use, these two are totally separated. With the hydrogen, they could start interconnecting, and from cooperation, good things can start. So also, an overall efficiency could be increased. So it's a messy chart, but what I like of this chart that everything is interconnected. You see arrows crossing. So energy will be used as electricity, energy will be used as natural gas, as hydrogen-based fuels, because most of the hydrogen will be produced from renewable electricity, they interconnect. And again, one sector can help the other sector. In a more complicated, of course, intersection means integrated systems are more complicated. They will have to be governed, controlled, but typically integrated systems are more efficient. So in the field, you keep on here power to gas or power to hydrogen and sector coupling. These are the two big concepts. Timeline, when is it going to happen? The hydrogen market today is, I wouldn't say zero, almost to zero. Today there are consolidated hydrogen consumers. So there is a hydrogen market. This sector is not an energy sector. So they don't use it for energy purposes. The new sectors, they use hydrogen as an energy carrier are power generation, transportation, everything that we've seen before. But the good part of here is that you'll see how the Hydrogen Council, which is an European entity dedicated to hydrogen, foresee the deployment up to 2050. And you will see that some arrows start earlier, some other arrows end up later. For instance, ships and airplanes. Airplanes, we're talking about the first hydrogen airplane flying 2035. You'll see Airbus. So the project is 2035, and they might go beyond that. But this is because they have to go through a lot of approvals. So the deployment is spread. Personally, my belief is making, in few words, say up to 2030, in the next 5-6 years, it's the time for big projects, big demonstrators. Worldwide, there are showcases where industries are testing, trying with the help of universities to learn how to build and manage these plants. There are huge projects in which public money and private money are spent together. So this is what I believe is going to happen up to 2030. After that, you will start seeing the first markets growing, develop until 2040, and then from there on, there will be just a simple growing of the infrastructure. Likely, so who knows, we will see. There's no rush, by the way, of seeing the end of this. Among all applications, I would like to focus on liquid hydrogen, not just because I did my PhD on it. It is to me also important, but for you, of course, but because it's highly technological. It's, in my opinion, it's super, super cool. So, see, why is super cool? Well, hydrogen has this unfortunate characteristic of being liquid at 20 Kelvin. A little cold. And then liquefying hydrogen from a point of view of energy usage is expensive. 16 kilowatt hour per kilogram of liquefied hydrogen. I would say more 10 than 16. 16 is really small plants. But look, what's the energy requirement for producing hydrogen from electricity? 50. So, hydrogen at 30 bar, 50 kilowatt hour per kilogram. Hydrogen liquid 20 Kelvin, 60. Not a big difference. 20% is not nothing, but it's not much. It's not what we call a showstopper. And then there is also hydrogen exists in two isomeric forms, hydrogen and para-hydrogen. There's a need to make catalytic conversion from one to the other while going down to cryogenic region. But it can be done. I mean, this word has been developed in the 50s and the 60s during the quest for the space. All this technology was functioning in the 50s and the 60s to shoot rockets out of Earth, okay? Now, today wouldn't be much different, just simply more efficient. But why would we do hydrogen liquefaction? Because there are some important applications. Look, International Energy Agency says in the 2050, we will use some 530 million tons per year of hydrogen, only 0.3, nothing from an energy perspective, it's liquid. Not big, but look, for doing what? This is, in my opinion, the fascinating part. Flying objects, not only rockets, also airplanes. Airbus designing its liquid hydrogen airplane by 2035. Airports already starting thinking on how to produce and liquefy on-site the hydrogen and how to transfer it to the airplanes. This is a sector that is already working to be ready 2035. It's working now. Then, science fiction to me. Countries and continents can become energy exporters. You produce Chile. Chile has a huge potential of renewable energy, wind in the south, sun in the north. They could produce liquid hydrogen and ammonia, by the way, green both, and deliver it to the world. Australia, same thing. There's already an ongoing project between Australia and Japan. There's already a cryogenic ship for transferring liquid hydrogen from Australia to Japan. Australia, a lot of renewables, producing electricity, transferred to Japan. Beautiful country, but a small area. And then it could be stored in spherical. This is actually not a huge one. This is the one by NASA. This is in Cape Canaveral for storing hydrogen. Not very long, not seasonal hydrogen, but if you have to store hydrogen like weekly, monthly maybe, let's think about it, you could do as liquid in this. So, I mean, to me, this is very fascinating. You're transferring energy, renewable energy around the world. Now you transfer oil, but this is transferring clean energy. Here are some, this is the same truck as we saw before, from front, from back. This is the Airbus ideas. This one I don't remember, a liquid gas to hydrogen plant in Nevada, Canada. I have to check Nevada, Canada sounds wrong. Maybe there's a Nevada, Canada, but I'll double check. And Nevada, Canada, we will see. Now, what is Politecnico doing? Politecnico, well, we're doing in the labs, you go to mechanical engineering department, to the chemical engineering department, the management engineering department, even in design, of course, energy engineering. Who am I missing? They all have ongoing projects on hydrogen. So whichever department you go, you'll find research groups working on hydrogen. But the university has something bigger than a departmental project. It has an initiative with companies, which is called the Hydrogen Joint Research Platform, where the companies and Politecnico make research together, sharing the efforts, sharing the risks, sharing. So that's a place where a number of companies are working together. You will see, maybe some of you have already worked in that light, outside, I mean in companies. You will see that having companies working together is not that easy. Here we have 15 companies working together. Okay? So this is the initiative. I would say believe in it. Last slide. So what are we saying? We're saying energy transition has already started. It's a big thing. There's electricity, there's hydrogen, there's ammonia, methanol, ethanol, e-fuels, biofuels, some fossil fuels. There's a room for all of us to do something. It's huge. It's huge. And it has already started and it will last for long. I always smile in a sad way when I look at 2050. In 2050, I'll be retired by 3 years. So when I talk about 2050, what will happen? I'll be one of those guys at the bar with the newspaper. I mean, it's a little sour taste, bitter taste, but that's okay, that's what happened. So it takes long. I mean, I will not see professionally the end of it. Hydrogen will have an important role, not the primary role, electricity. You want to do electrification, go. There's a lot of room. Amazing also over there. It's an answer. If you like to do hydrogen, stay with me. If you like to do ammonia, there are other friends doing it. Hydrogen will be crucial from those areas where electricity is not really useful, difficult to store. Liquid hydrogen, not if hydrogen is not number one, it's not lion. Liquid hydrogen is a cab, is a little cat. But still very fascinating because of the technology. And again, guys, you're taking energy from Chile to also Japan, maybe. Politecnico di Milano, we try to do our little part in there, okay? So, hopefully I inspired a little bit, at least of curiosity, but you know, as Socrates was saying, the curiosity is the starting point. Once you're curious, you start learning, you start understanding, you start questioning, you start creating new knowledge. So I hope I have inspired a little bit of curiosity in you. I know you're going to have tomorrow another, tomorrow? Next week. Next Tuesday. I'm on another calendar, sorry. Next week, another seminar. You will see the industrial perspective because you have a company, known company for technical gas, coming and talking to you. So you will see the industrial perspective because they also believe in it. I do, they do. It's a feasible future. Okay, guys, be inspired. Maybe some curiosities. I promised myself to be quick, but I couldn't. I mean, I like it, so I cannot be fast talking about hydrogen. Maybe some curiosities, though, guys. Online, maybe if you can read me some questions. No? Shy? Yes.
Will all will hydrogen be used like a fuel cell or also in combined cycle with the turbo gas using hydrogen?
Okay. The most natural way of using hydrogen is in fuel cells. Low temperature, high temperature, fuel cells. But today there's already a big infrastructure, and this infrastructure could be refurbished, tuned to work on hydrogen. So the existing natural gas power plants could be turned into hydrogen power plants, hydrogen burning power plants. Because after all, you need to change the burner of the gas turbine. But also, look, size and efficiency of a combined cycle power plant. Hundreds of megawatts today with natural gas, over 65%. Astonishing. So why not doing it? The only difference is the NX. The only difference is the NX. You use a fuel cell, low temperature, 0. If you use a combustion-based system, you would have to control. So in my opinion, the next frontier, at least in the hydrogen sector, it will be 0 NOx. So in the lab, we're already in the mindset, okay, hydrogen will come. Let's develop technologies where you use the hydrogen at 0 NOx, even for thermal uses. How you can do it with catalysts. Properly set up, so you have to work on the catalyst, and we cooperate with colleagues from the catalytic sector, as the process will be the process such a cheap catalysts are employed. But so also, I don't believe in a world where everything, all the energy, the hydrogen infrastructure will end up in fuel cells. I don't. Because also fuel cells require, in my opinion, building an infrastructure with
common because
is a key to success. Other curiosities? Nothing. You guys telling me that I will be on time at my meeting? There are two. Yes, please. Yes, please. Why? Yes. There are two main reasons. Say that you want to do green hydrogen in the backyard of your house. You need to install photovoltaic and install an electrolyzer. Photovoltaic is not expensive. Nowadays, it's a cheap form of electricity. But the equivalent hour is 2,000, let's make it simple, 2,000 hours per year. So it works 1/4 of the year. And then you buy an electrolyzer that today is expensive. Today the electrolyzer is too expensive. And not only is it expensive, but it works 1/4 of the time. So the investment cost is spread over a high the investment cost is spread over a small quantity of produced hydrogen. So equivalent hours of the source and investment cost of the electrolyzer today are the issues. Electrolyzer will go down by, who knows, maybe 1/5, 1/10 in some years, but still 2,000 hours. So that would be wise on a big infrastructure to use both sun and wind, because maybe when the sun goes down, you start having coastal wind, and that way, on a big systems, the price will drop. The target is, say, the round numbers are 1-2 euros per kilogram. They sometimes higher, if not done by natural gas.
Is there any possibility that the plants can produce hydrogen? Maybe some
Okay. Biological hydrogen, yes. I'll be honest, I'm not an expert. The plant that I see has nothing natural, bio. But yes, there are bacteria, there are some that produce natural gas, but some other that under certain conditions produce hydrogen. My perspective is that as biomethane is important, biohydrogen can be important, but you really have to go big, bio is limited. I mean, you really need plants.
So we can consider it as a green hydrogen?
Yes.
More about weight to power ratio in the transport system.
See the storage?
I know that hydrogen tanks are really heavy.
See?
So probably in transport they won't be so efficient.
Actually, if we compare hydrogen tanks with respect to gasoline, yes. So you cannot beat diesel or gasoline in terms of energy density. You cannot. If you compare compressed hydrogen or liquid, the Mercedes truck that we saw with batteries, it wins. So today, the general mindset is that trucks or traveling over 1,000 kilometers, they have to be liquid hydrogen. And yes, the storage system has to be bigger compared to diesel, the diesel one, but smaller, much smaller and much lighter compared to electrical. So it's really, and Elon Musk did the semi. Semi is the truck by Tesla, and but it's really the how you call it in English? The distance you can travel over 1,000 kilometers in any recharge. And also, you need some hours to recharge an electrical truck, whereas you will need 15-20 minutes to recharge it with liquid hydrogen.
How will the recharge system
It would be how you call it, a hose, a particular hose with a yes, but liquid hydrogen will be a little bit more complicated because of the temperature. So if you do it with natural, with compressed hydrogen, it will be like natural gas, and they already exist. There are startups developing refueling stations, electrical and compressed hydrogen. They're already exist actually. For the liquid hydrogen, it is early. Too early. We need to go after 2030. Too early. So that truck exists, works, but they have to go to a Linde plant to refill it. Yes, please.
During a session, how the hydrogen is transported there?
Okay, to the refueling station, the hydrogen, there are main two options. One is done on site with electricity, but in this case, the trick that I told you, the seasonal, it doesn't work because you still use electricity on site. I believe strongly in the transport pipelines. So today, SNAM is certifying with RINA, which is a certification Italian body, the natural gas transportation infrastructure for pure hydrogen. And that one can be done easily. The distribution, so, is more difficult because transport is all metal pipes with some polymeric sealings, but it's mainly metal. If you go in the distribution, it's totally the opposite. It's mainly polymeric and not metallic, and that's still an issue. But if you think of big refueling station close to the hydrogen transport pipelines, I believe in those pipelines. And then a typical objection to this is the same pipeline of natural gas in hydrogen can transfer a same energy expenditure for transferring a third of the energy. It's true. But if you think of natural gas now is taken 5, 6, 8,000 kilometers away from us. Hydrogen could be produced offshore, nearby. So it's true that it cannot carry as much, but the travel distance could be much shorter. Like Europe is thinking of, I think they call them the backbones of hydrogen. I'm not sure about the name. And Italy could be a transfer of hydrogen from the North Africa, where North Africa could be a huge producer, through Italy to Europe by transportation pipelines. These are the ideas, I mean.
We have a question from home.
Yeah, then few minutes I gotta go, because I'm always late, but I'll try to manage not to be too late.
So it's about residential usage.
Yes.
So talking about the residential sector, would you say that it makes sense and it is economically convenient to produce electricity burning hydrogen and then run heat pumps instead of producing heat directly from hydrogen combustion, considering also the cost of enhancing the electric grid in order to allow that extra electricity transport?
Okay, so it's an interesting question, and actually we're investigating it. So hydrogen comes to the house. If I understand correctly, the question is there are two paths. One is hydrogen directly to a water heater, a boiler, or going to a fuel cell producing producing electricity from hydrogen, right? So hydrogen is always the source. I do not have the answer, but we are actually investigating, because as a process engineer, there could be something wise to make it very efficient. So I don't know I don't know today how to answer, but it's a good question. I mean, I don't know, but I'm curious myself. Okay, guys, 44. Let's say that I go to my meeting. Thanks very much for listening. Hopefully, you'll find your spot in the hydrogen sector. Okay, look for it. Ciao, guys. Ciao, Miguel.